So we want to thank Dr. Richard Hansen for coming and talking to us about kind of an important, oh, there you are, important subject. We had more signed up, but you know, it's
We
so
were just talking
nice
about
out.
that. You know, it's a beautiful day. It wasn't
It is,
supposed
so
to be
we
so sunny and
appreciate
nice,
you
and
who-
it's before Christmas, and
That's
you know, so
right, that's
people
right.
have things to do.
That's
and
right. So, all right, so I'll leave it to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm not offended. So, what shall we do with the lights? So,
Whatever you think.
well, what I
They're
was
either
wondering-
on or off, I will tell you
okay, we'll
that.
turn them off and let's see what. Is that sleepogenic or?
I'm wide
What do you
awake,
guys want? So here, the reason I'm asking is because my pointer, which, you know, it's not gonna, I don't think you can see it on here. No. You can see it. Does anybody understand the technology of how the screen can eat your pointer?
It's all light.
Yeah, it's whatever. Okay, well, thanks for coming. I am a retired oncologist. I've been retired for 6.5 years, and I'm going to tell you my story about why I'm here today, and thank you for coming. So, my story starts 11.5 years ago. I just turned 60 at that time, and I was in to see my internist for my annual visit, and we talked about this, that, and the other, the usual stuff. And then he stopped, and he took his glasses off, and he looked me in the eye, and he said, "You know, Rich, you just turned 60, and if you're lucky and no badness befalls you, you have about 20 years before you start to get to be old." And I thought, well, that's an interesting comment. And he went on to say, "You know, the question I have for you is, what can you do during that time to give yourself optimal health? What can you do during that time for yourself to have the best quality of life?" And I was taken a bit aback by it because I thought, gosh, you know, I exercise some and my weight's pretty close to what's supposed to be, and I don't drink too much too often, but it is Wisconsin and it's a long winter, and you know how it is. But anyway, but I did get to thinking about it. And are you going to stay or leave? Oh.
No, I'm going to
Okay.
stay. I
Oh.
just gonna stay
Because
by
I
the
just
door
say, if
just
you
in
want
case
to
some-
leave, you have permission. So I'm not
No,
offended.
No, I'm
I
gonna
had kids,
stay.
you know. So it wasn't too long after this that I ran into this book, and I don't know if any of you have seen this or read it, Younger Next Year, but this is specifically for you.
Thank you.
Okay, here you are. This book is written by a doctor and a lawyer, which of course is a very strange combination because usually that's like oil and water, right? But they write a wonderful book, and I recommend it's available in paperback, costs you $12 from Amazon. And it is a good read, it's very fun, and it's highly motivational. The whole thesis of this book is that if you exercise at a higher than probably what you were doing level, and combined with a good diet and common sense, you will actually feel so much better that you will start to feel like you are getting younger. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty big claim, but the idea of turning my chronological clock back was kind of attractive. And so I thought, okay, I'm in. So I bought myself a gym membership and I started exercising more and took some pounds off and started to notice that within a few months I started to feel better. My cycling got stronger, my cross-country skiing got better, my endurance was better, my posture was better, I felt better. And I actually was so excited about this, I started talking to some of my cancer patients. At that time I was still practicing. And I would talk to people who came back, and when they would, healthy, well people that were just coming once a year, and they would say, what can I do for myself to give myself optimal health? And I had said, well, this is what I'm doing. Why don't you try this? So I would talk to them. I was getting so excited that I decided that what I really wanted to do was in retirement, I wanted to talk to anybody and everybody that would listen. So you're here, and you're fulfilling one of my promises to myself, that I would talk to anybody and everybody that listened. Because this issue of making healthy lifestyle choices is so important for our health. That's what wellness is. Wellness is not the absence of disease. I have a stent in my right coronary. I got, high risk from parents, and everybody has aches and pains, and they have this and that. Everybody has something. But wellness is not about having no medical problems or issues. Wellness is about making healthy choices. Now, I was giving this talk a couple of years ago to a group of women for my wife. and it's in February. And February, of course, is Heart Healthy Month, and you may remember that. And at that time, she wanted me to emphasize the importance of heart disease in women, which of course is exceedingly important because heart disease is the most common cause of death in women in America. We all know it is the most common cause of death in men, but it's also in women. Women catch up. In fact, 1 million men and women together die every year from heart disease. So heart disease is still so important. But heart disease is a disease that we can do so much about with diet, weight reduction, exercise, stress reduction. And it parallels a wellness approach so much that I decided that hereafter I would incorporate specific attention to an emphasis on heart disease with this little red icon. So whenever this icon appears, it's to remind you and me that this is a really important heart issue. You'll be seeing this guy come back. Now, a little history about wellness. The concept was started in the 50s. It didn't catch on. I think it was the Surgeon General report in 1964 that really was the first reason for people to start paying attention to wellness. Do you remember what that was? Does anybody know? Yep.
Smoking?
Of course,
Smoking.
absolutely. Very good for you. In
I'm old
1964, the
enough.
Attorney General, you weren't there, you just read about it, I know. Right. Well, I was there, I was a kid, I remember. At any rate,
Doctors used to advertise on
it was
smoke
very
on
exciting.
TV.
Yeah, it was very, and by the way, do feel free to interact with me because if I say something outrageous or something that's really, bears comment, please jump in. But I remember this very distinctly. The Attorney General came out and he said that men, who it wasn't about women, men who smoke have an increased chance of dying of laryngeal and lung cancer. And so this is the first example that a behavior or a lifestyle choice that we made actually would decrease our survival and, of course, decrease the quality of our life. In 1977, the National Wellness Institute was formed right here in Wisconsin at Stevens Point. And every year they have an international meeting that's been going for over 40 years. Kudos to the people at the University of Wisconsin. Dan Rather did a 60 Minutes in 1969 that also brought a lot of attention to the wellness concept. And since then, it's become a $1 trillion industry. Trillion, okay? Not billion, trillion. That's national debt kind of figure. I mean, wellness is everywhere. There are all sorts of magazines. This is a wellness magazine in Russian. There's all sorts of stuff on the internet. This is Katie, the wellness mama. She has a blog where she talks about wellness ideas for her children. There's wellness spas everywhere, Wisconsin and throughout the United States and throughout the world. In fact, here's a list. You can go to this website and see 10 of the top holiday spa and wellness retreats in the world. You can go to a lot of exotic places around the world and have a lot of funky things. Do you know what this is?
Seaweed.
Of course.
Yeah.
And here's aromatherapy to stimulate your endorphins and make you feel better. Nothing wrong with that. Here's wellness food. You can even get wellness products for your dog.
She's on it.
There you go. Wellness programs in the workplace are very commonplace. Every pharmacy has all sorts of, pills and various lotions and potions and things to make you feel better and so forth. Here's somebody's Venn diagram. This gets increasingly complicated. I hope you understand where I'm going with this. This is a Venn diagram of 8 different domains of wellness, and including occupational and financial, which I think totally misses the point of wellness. And here's what we got. Wellness has become this $1 trillion industry internationally with all of this gamish, this stuff that makes this incredibly complicated concept. My thesis is that it isn't complicated at all. It's very simple, and I'm here to explain to you why I think it's so simple. Not easy, but it's simple. I would reduce that Venn diagram to 3 domains: spiritual, physical, and emotional. Spiritual I put at the top because for 90% of Americans, according to polls, it's very important, and if not the most important aspect of their lives. But I'm not going to talk about spiritual wellness because spiritual wellness is very personal. And what your spiritual view is not going to be what mine is, not going to be somebody else's. So I'm going to just leave that to you and urge you to seek that in your own private time. What I am going to talk about are physical and emotional wellness domains, and I think that's really essence about what wellness is in this country. Now, We have these cute little icons just to remind you that we're talking first about physical and then emotional wellness, and we're going to get right into it here with the core components. And I was talking to Deb here when we came in, and she almost pretty much, I thought maybe she had given this lecture herself because she seems to know all this stuff, and all of you probably do. None of you, in fact, I would contend, will be surprised by any of this. Exercise, diet, weight, and getting enough sleep. So important. I put exercise in bold letters. I hope you can see that because I think of the four, it is the most important. And you can see that all of them are heart relevant. Yeah, exercise. I thought you said extra fries. I know. This is the response that lots of people I get when we talk about, oh my God, we're going to talk about exercise. Don't you love it? Here's the good news. It doesn't matter what you do. You just have to do something. It doesn't matter if you walk on the treadmill, run on the treadmill, walk outside, run outside, ride your bike outside, swim. It's winter, and we used to have snow before the world was taken over by heat. But if you get snow, you can cross-country ski. And yes, that's yours truly. Skiing in Finland in 2014 in the Finlandia Hito, their national ski race.
Wow.
That's me.
How'd you do?
I finished.
Yay.
I mean, I'm not a world-class competitor, but I did finish.
Good.
And I wasn't last. This is me too, okay? It's also you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you. It's every one of us.
How we're built.
That's exactly right. We have over 600 muscles in our body. The most important thing, though, is half of our dry weight is muscle. And so what's important is that what happens in muscle tissue has a huge impact on what happens in our body. Because remember, all that muscle tissue has the same blood supply that your brain does, and your stomach has, and your skin has, and so forth. And here is one of the nuggets. She said she wanted some nuggets, at least one nugget. Cytokine C10. This is your nugget. I bet you've never heard of cytokine C10. All right, but just a brief little bit of physiology here. There are substances called proteins that are small molecules in our body that are called cytokines, and they are released by cells, and they are one of the ways that cells in our body talk to each other, communicate with each other. Cytokines are generated by exercise, cytokine C10 especially. And cytokine C10 is a master rejuvenator. It has profound effects on our body. It strengthens and makes our strengthens our muscles and makes them more better at endurance. It strengthens and makes our heart and lung function better. Suppresses undesirable bacteria in our flora, in our gut. It suppresses our bad cholesterol. It modulates our glucose. It helps to keep our skin young. It counters depression, improves our cognitive function, improves our memory, and boosts our immune system. There's science to represent every one of those claims. There are no drugs, legal or illegal, or substances anywhere that you can buy or get that have so many profound effects on our body. And it's free. And in fact, you make it. The problem is we just don't make enough of it because we're sedentary. And the way we are meant the way we're built is that we're meant to keep moving. This master rejuvenator builds you stronger, healthier, and helps to keep you young. Now, here's one of the rubs. You see on the internet, or you hear that just 6 minutes a day on the treadmill, or 10 minutes a day for a walk or something, is enough. Well, I'd say it isn't enough. It's something, and it's good. But the more you exercise, the more you sweat, you get your heart rate up, and you work harder, the better it is. And the reason is that there's a cytokine C6 that is the build them down, tear them down cytokine. So every time you exercise, your muscles get a little bit sore. C6 is helping to remodulate and rebuild those muscles because it stimulates the production of C10. But here's the neat part. This conversion from C6 to C10 is not one-to-one, it's logarithmic. And so the harder you work and the more you work, the more ultimately you're doing that's beneficial to your body. That's why this appears on the gym screen so oftentimes around the country. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. So yeah, maybe 6 minutes on the elliptical is worth something good, but 30 minutes would be a lot better. And it would be a lot better if you get your heart rate up and you sweat and you get a little bit shorter breath. Now, I would be remiss talking about exercise if I didn't talk about 3 other aspects, and that is strengthening, this is a joke. This is supposed to be fun. So this is how I find out if anybody ever goes to the gym. The spotter is the person here in case you can't get the barbells off, so, but he doesn't have any spots, so.
Everybody else does.
I knew you'd think it's funny eventually, really. Flexibility, so important. This yoga pose really works. My boobs are closer to my chin than they've been in years. I'm glad somebody thinks that's funny. I think that's hilarious. And the last aspect is balance. What's the biggest risk to us as we get older?
Balance.
Going to ground, of course. So our balance is so important. So the big 4 are aerobic exercise, but strengthening, stretching, and balance are all part of it. And they are so important to keep us upright and keep us going really well for a long period of time. So that's a quick run through exercise. Albert, the doctor says I need more exercise. I want you to start jogging for me. Now, we live in a world of surrogates, right? There ain't no surrogate for this. You got to do it yourself. Okay, harangue number 2, diet, right? None of this will surprise you. Calories, tiny creatures that live in your closet and sew your clothes a little bit tighter every night. Now, here's our national meal, right? Our wellness special is the regular double cheeseburger with only half the fries. So here's the deal. And this is not new information, right? But I have to point this out. We tend to eat the wrong things, and we tend to eat too much of them. And the too much of them problem is a complicated problem because there's so much available food. We live in a world of plenty. I mean, in a country of plenty. And it's so good, and it's such a part of our society. It's such a social behavior to eat. And unfortunately, eating large amounts has become sort of a way of life in our country. The old notion of strapping on the old feed bag, I mean, it's all you can eat and so forth. It's kind of out of control.
Out of curiosity, why are you showing Indian food?
Oh, it's just because it's very, but there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
This is the point. But you're right. Indian food. I could have chosen.
I just thought it was odd.
No, you're
Talking about
right.
Our diet and then.
You're exactly right. It's just the point is there's so much food,
It's all
and you can
fried.
overeat on Indian food too.
It's
Oh
all
yeah,
fried.
yeah. Love Indian food.
Me, I do too. I had fun until my doctor took the T-bone away. Okay, so what should we eat? Now, what is this?
The food
pyramid.
The food pyramid, right. And this came out in the 90s. And it was a good start, but it had a problem, right? It had a really big problem. Yeah, so at the base was, based with carbohydrates, breads and pasta and, lots of things that put on a lot of calories. So this is the food plate. How many of you know about the food plate? All of you? Good, excellent. So this is a new way to try to look at what we should eat. Divided into vegetables and fruits, grains and protein with a little bit of dairy to supply vitamin D and so forth. Now, Michael Pollan, who any of you read from some stuff about him? Sure, wonderful. He's the biggest foodie in the country. He said, very simply, eat food, not in parentheses, it's not processed food, right? Eat food, real food, not too much, mostly plants. So let's see how he did. Vegetables, fruits, grains, protein, not any of that. It comes out of a can for the most part. And it's mostly plants. And the food plate is designed to try to get our portion size down, which of course has gotten to be very big in this country. Now, one of the big bugaboos commonly is vegetables, right? And in fact, I think you said, if I may say that, and I have trouble eating my vegetables or something. But anyway, vegetables are so full of micronutrients and so important for our well-being. They have relatively few calories, and they are very healthy. The trick is to try to eat something of 4 different colors every day. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can play the game. And of course, hummus, which is made from chickpeas, is a wonderful way to eat fresh vegetables and is something to consider. But you have to be careful, and that is, even some hummus is better than others in terms of its healthy attributes. Most of it's good, but sodium we want to pay attention to. And the other part, of course, is how much fat we have. And so the reason I'm putting this here is to point out reading the labels, and especially pointing out saturated fat. In this country, we eat way too much saturated fat, which of course is one of the culprits in terms of our severe problems with atherosclerotic heart disease and weight gain and so forth. The recommendations are less than 10% of our total caloric intake being saturated fat. The way to think of that's more in terms of grams. So if you read the labels and see how many grams of saturated fat are in something, you can kind of get an idea about what you're eating. For example, I had a stent in my right coronary, which I had placed 2.5 years ago. And so I became very, very label oriented. And I started reading and really taking heart about what I was putting in my body. And there were Klondike bars in our freezer from my son-in-law. And I asked my wife, I said, honey, how many grams of saturated fat are in a Klondike bar? And she said, I have no idea. Anybody know?
A lot.
Yeah, 12 grams. And so that's my whole allotment, because if you have coronary artery disease, your recommended dietary allotment for saturated fat is 12 grams. So reading labels is very empowering, and you can learn a lot about what you're putting in your body by doing that. And that's where I'm going with this, and that is say goodbye to mindless eating. So just don't eat something put in front of you without necessarily thinking about it. Another way of looking at it is you are what you eat. Okay, third harangue, our weight. Now, this is a body mass index chart, underweight to extremely obese, but it's also the shadow, the outline of human beings in this country over the last 100 years. If you look at pictures from 100 years ago, just about everybody was here. And I'm not saying underweight's good, but now the most common category in this country is the obese category. And here's the cost of that. Raises our blood pressure, puts extra work on our heart and lungs, extra work on our joints, increases our risk of diabetes, increases our cancer risk, makes our hypercholesterolemia problems worse, and of course affects our mobility and balance. Here's the good news. The risks decrease when you lose weight. So all of these problems are modulated or go away if a person gets their weight back down to normal. Now, calculating your weight using the BMI is very simple. How many of you have done that? Excellent. I knew I was talking to the converted. At any rate, it's very simple. When I have this conversation with patients, they usually think I'm making this stuff up. I'm not. This comes from life insurance tables, and it's real. So our goal is normal BMI, and you can calculate yours. You can pull it up on the internet. Very simple to do. It takes 30 seconds, and you can figure out where you are. Last bit of this is my comments about sleep. We all need a certain amount of sleep, and we are made differently. Some people can get by or feel perfectly well with less sleep than others, but they're just lucky, I guess. But people who kind of burn the candle at both ends, as my dad used to say, sometimes they pay a price for that. So pay attention to your needs and get enough sleep. Now, I would be remiss as a doctor if I didn't say a few things about health maintenance, and one is that I do think the visit with your primary doctor once a year is an important thing to do. We used to call it a checkup. I like to call it a check-in. You check in with your doctor to see what's new, and you also, it's a good time for you to ask any of those medical questions you have kind of lingering in your brain. And it's also time for you to just be sure your immunizations are up to date. So I don't know how many of you know this, but the blood pressure recommendations for this country, in this country, for management have changed within the last couple of years, and they're more stringent than they used to be. These are the kinds of things you find out when you go for your physician visit. Secondly, get your eyes checked, especially as we get more birthdays. It's so important. Vision is so critical. It sneaks up on us. Cataracts come slowly as we get more birthdays, but our vision can deteriorate. Glaucoma, a silent cause of blindness in 2% of the population, can be only detected with measurements of pressure. So get your eyes checked on a regular basis. It's so important. And take good care of your teeth. Now with modern dentistry, most people can live to well into old age and have their original teeth. Now, anybody notice the heart up there? Why is that there?
Because your health starts overall with your teeth, your mouth.
Yeah, so we always have bacteria in our mouth, around our teeth, and around our gums where the teeth intersect. And that's if we don't take good care of our teeth, we get periodontal disease, and there's a lot of bacteria that live there, and they secrete things that are thought to, into the bloodstream, that are thought to promote atherosclerosis. And there's some controversy about this, but it's just another motivator to take good care of your teeth. And while we're talking about teeth, this is something you might want to do as you get more birthdays, especially if you're a coffee drinker like me, and that is brighten your teeth. You can get plastic trays, and you can get a bleach from your dentist and put it on once or twice a month, or once a week or every couple of weeks, and it can whiten your teeth, and it will make you feel younger. And then don't do this, right?
Ouch.
We know better, and we didn't know better, decades ago, but we do know better now. Sunburn is a dangerous thing to do, especially for people that are high risk of melanoma. My father-in-law died of melanoma because he was a sunburner like this. And the whole point of it is this, and that is respect your body. It's the only one you get. Or the other way of saying it, it's the only place you have to live here. Now, when I get to this point in this talk, I always feel like I've just been giving one harangue after another, and it's true. Diet, exercise, weight, it's kind of drag. But here's the thing, none of that is surprising, right? I mean, you all know that. Everybody knows about that. And so part of the reason I like to give this talk is sort of a motivational thing, just to remind people that these are important issues. But usually it's not a surprise. But with emotional wellness, most people do not have the working knowledge and familiarity with it that they have about these other topics. And it's unfortunate, because from a quality of life standpoint, emotional wellness has more to do with our daily way we feel, our happiness level, if you want to say it that way, than the physical wellness issues. It's funny. If you sprain your ankle, you know what to do, right? You put ice on it, you put your ankle up, you wait for a few weeks, and usually it'll heal up. And if it doesn't heal up, you go, gosh, I better go to the doctor and get an x-ray. Maybe I have a small fracture or something like that. And so you have an algorithm in your brain, you know how to work through it. But if somebody criticizes you and says, you're kind of a schmuck, I mean, are you really kind of stupid, or you're kind of this or that, do you have the tools in your toolbox to kind of deal with that so you don't go off the rails? So what we're going to do is talk about emotional wellness. And the way we're going to do it is I've selected 7 domains. These are not my ideas. This is written by one of the popular psychologists that writes on the internet. But I just think it's an easy, nice way of looking at emotional wellness. These 7 domains are, you'll see, they're not complicated. It's not rocket science, but sometimes things that are pretty obvious to us go by us. So I want to point this out. And then the last thing I want to remind us about is that this is never something that we arrive at and you've got for the rest of your life. It's always a work in progress. We're always striving for improvement, and nobody ever has perfect emotional wellness. So here we go. Number 1, you like who you are. Now, not in a conceited kind of way, right? But you know who you are. You know your strengths, your weaknesses, your foibles, your idiosyncrasies. And you know what? You're okay with that. You like yourself. You kind of like the person you are. Secondly, and most importantly, you're congruent. What that means is you present yourself honestly to other people, so you don't pretend to be somebody you're not. You don't wear a mask. You don't try to act like somebody that you're not. You're comfortable in your own skin. You have self-compassion. You know that you're not perfect, and you know there are areas that could stand some work and improvement, but it doesn't keep you up at night. You think, I'll try to make some changes here or there, but you can accept yourself for the person that you are. So you like who you are. Secondly, you're in touch with your feelings and your thoughts. A healthy person knows that emotions such as anger and jealousy and disappointment and bitterness and anxiety and so forth are all parts of life. We all experience those. And there's nothing unusual about that and nothing to be afraid of about that. But the issue is, do you let those feelings control you, or do you manage them effectively? And an obvious example of that is somebody who has a fear of flying. Some people love to fly. Most people, I would contend, probably don't particularly love flying. And there are some people, of course, the John Maddens of the world and so forth, who cannot get on an airplane. They just can't. So their fear controls their behavior. Number 3, you're flexible. So you get up in the morning, and you think your day's going to go like this, right? Along the way is a flat tire, or a sick child, or a canceled meeting, or yada, yada, yada. Life never goes exactly the way you think it's going to, or the way maybe you hope it will. And the question is, can you cope with that without it throwing you into a tizzy? Do you know when to speak up, and do you know when to be quiet? Can you stand up for yourself when you need to be, or can you let things go? Do you have that kind of sense of flexibility and presence to know how to find your way, navigate your way through the daily routine? Flexibility is one of the key components of all good emotional balance. Number 4, you are grateful. We talked about this earlier. You live your life in appreciation for what you have, not in frustration over what you lack. Let me say it again because it's so important. You live your life in appreciation for what you have, not in frustration over what you lack. So important. It's a way of sort of counting your blessings on an ongoing basis. Now, if you want to take that a step further, write these things down that you're grateful for. My daughter, one of my daughters, has been doing this for a number of years, and she has over 1,500 entries. Your idea, I love, was writing down something to be thankful for or grateful for on a slip of paper and putting it in a jar, and then on Christmas, I think you said you get them out and read them. So what a beautiful idea. Writing this down, keeping a journal, a gratitude journal, writing it down always takes this appreciation to a higher level. It's so very important. We can always look at other people and other people's situation and imagine that they have it made, or they have this, or they have that, and so forth. But what we really need to do is focus on ourselves and have deep gratitude for what we have. Number 5, you value relationships and you treat others well. You have regard for other people. And that regard is for people, even if they are different color, different language, different gender, different age group, and even if they root for the Bears or the Vikings.
Oh. That just did it.
I know everybody has their limits. You feel it's important to help others, and you go out of your way to try to find ways to reach out and be of service to other people. You value experiences more than possessions. Let's face it, we live in a materialistic world, and it's so easy to get caught up in, gosh, if I just had that, or if I, you know how it is. That's human nature, and we all have to work against that. but it doesn't bring great happiness. The experience of walking out and listening to the great horned owls with their mating calls this time of year, or sunset, or there's a gazillion ways that life can get your attention if you'll pay attention. Those experiences, especially if you share them with people you care about, are so much more meaningful than just yet another possession. And lastly, you have meaning in your life. And what this means is that there's something else in your life that you relate to that's more important than your own sort of moment by moment, day by day minutia. So, summary. You like who you are. You're in touch with your emotions and your thoughts. You're flexible. You're grateful. You value relationships, treat other people well. You value your experiences more than possessions, and you have deep meaning in your life. Now, how do we improve our emotional wellness? The first step is what you're doing today, is you're increasing your awareness of what that means. And then you do the important thing, and that is you self-reflect. You say, okay, how am I doing? And then you go, I could stand a little work here in this area. So you develop a therapeutic strategy to deal with that. So, I said wellness isn't that complicated. Here are the cliff notes. You know all this. Exercise and eat well. Seek your own spirituality. We didn't talk about that. Monitor your emotions. Be in touch with them. Care, connect, and commit. And I'll leave you with this last cartoon. Where did you find that? I've been searching for it everywhere, and I created it myself. Everybody is responsible for their own happiness. Nobody else's responsibility. My responsibility to take care of me and seek mine, just like each and every one of you. So I'll leave you with that thought. I'll be happy to respond to any comment that you have. Thank you for coming.